Hey there, Steelers Nation. Welcome back to the channel where we keep you up to date with everything Pittsburgh Steelers. This team is constantly pushing to improve and perfect their game, all in pursuit of delivering the results we know our fans deserve. Today, we've got a packed episode, updates on Naji Harris's status, some heated comments about George Pickens, and what it all means for our playoff chances. Before we dive in, do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into it. Let's start with our star running back, Naji Harris, who gave us all a bit of a scare during the Week 13 win over the Bengals. Early in the first quarter, Harris left the game after a short reception, sparking concerns about his health. Luckily, Harris returned to the game and put on a show, racking up 129 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. But it wasn't an injury that sidelined him, it was Thanksgiving leftovers. Harris hilariously explained post-game that he'd overindulged on a fire-ass banana thing made by Pat Fryermuth's girlfriend, Jill. The indulgence left him feeling off, but after some oranges, he was back in action. That laughable moment aside, Wednesday brought a new twist. Harris wasn't spotted during the open portion of practice. Whether it's a precautionary rest day or something more serious remains unclear, but the Steelers have been careful with Harris's workload this season, especially after his 22-touch performance against Cincinnati. Through 12 games, Harris has been a force, amassing 824 rushing yards, 249 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's been particularly explosive since Russell Wilson took over at quarterback, opening up the offense and giving Harris more room to shine. Now, let's shift gears to wide receiver George Pickens, whose immense talent is sometimes overshadowed by emotional outbursts. In the Bengals game, Pickens was flagged for 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, actions that drew sharp criticism from head coach Mike Tomlin. "He's got to grow up," Tomlin said. "It's an emotional game, but he's got to handle it better. These divisional matchups are intense, and as George, he's got a target on his back. He knows that, but maturity has to come quickly." Former Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger also weighed in on his podcast, praising Tomlin's public stance. Coach T calling him out was a big deal. That kind of accountability is important, especially with a guy like Pickens who's a cornerstone for the team. You can't hurt your team with penalties, especially in the playoffs where every mistake is magnified. Pickens' penalties stemmed from emotional reactions, one for taunting an opponent by throwing the ball and another unrelated to an opponent. Referee Sean Hochley explained that the second act didn't meet the criteria for disqualification, but it's clear that Pickens is walking a fine line. This isn't the first time Pickens' discipline has come under scrutiny. With 55 catches for 850 yards this season, he's undeniably the Steelers' top target, but his behavior raises questions about his long-term future. Next season is the final year of his rookie deal, and while he's likely looking for a big payday, the Steelers need to see consistent maturity from their number 1 receiver. The Steelers are sitting pretty at 9-3, leading the AFC North and firmly in the hunt for a deep postseason run. But challenges remain. Harris's potential absence, even briefly, could disrupt the offensive rhythm, and Pickens' emotional penalties could prove costly in tighter, high-stakes games. The team's resilience, however, has been one of its defining traits this season. Russell Wilson has brought stability and leadership under center, while Arthur Smith's dynamic offense is giving playmakers like Harris and Pickens room to thrive. Still, every detail matters as the Steelers push toward January football. Naji Harris's health. Managing Harris's workload is crucial. Whether Wednesday's absence was precautionary or a sign of something more, keeping him healthy is key to sustaining the balanced attack that's fueled the team's recent success. George Pickens' growth. Tomlin's message is clear. Pickens needs to channel his passion into production, not penalties. With his talent, he has the potential to be one of the best in the league, but discipline will be the determining factor in his future with the Steelers. Clean football. As Big Ben and Coach T emphasized, mistakes in the playoffs are costly. Whether it's unsportsmanlike conduct, turnovers, or blown assignments, the Steelers can't afford to beat themselves when the stakes are highest. Joey Porter Jr., our standout rookie cornerback, had a tough outing last week against the Bengals, earning not 1, not 2, but 6 penalties. 3 were for pass interference, 2 for defensive holding, and 1 for illegal use of hands. While those numbers are eye-popping, head coach Mike Tomlin isn't pressing the panic button. Certainly, he could have been better technically, Tomlin admitted. But when you're going up against receivers like T. Higgins, you've got to match their physicality. That's the game plan, and we're willing to take those risks if it means staying competitive. Tomlin even compared Porter's approach to defending an elite basketball player like Shaquille O'Neal. We're not going to let them dominate us without a fight. Sometimes, that means using fouls strategically. Despite this philosophy, Porter's penalties contributed to Joe Burrow torching the defense for 309 yards and 3 touchdowns. The rookie corner may have struggled, but his physical style is part of what makes him such a promising player. Steelers fans will have to decide if the growing pains are worth the potential payoff. What do you think? Should Porter dial it back, or should he keep playing aggressively, even if penalties come with it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The Steelers are gearing up for a crucial rematch against the Cleveland Browns, a team that handed Pittsburgh one of its 3 losses this season. That Week 11 game was a frustrating one, as Cleveland's defense stifled Pittsburgh's offense in a snowy showdown. While fans are calling this a revenge game, linebacker Peyton Wilson sees it differently. Coach T did an amazing job reframing this for us. It's not about getting back at them, it's about getting better, Wilson said. We made mistakes that cost us the game. It's on us to fix those and get the win this time. The Steelers' offense has come a long way since that loss. Russell Wilson has taken the reins at quarterback, going 5-1 since his return from injury, and the team is finally finding its groove in the red zone. However, the Browns' defense is no joke, led by the always dangerous Myles Garrett. In their last meeting, Garrett was a game-wrecker with 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and 5 tackles. Meanwhile, T.J. Watt, usually a defensive juggernaut, had a quieter game. This matchup isn't just about the Steelers versus the Browns. It's Watt versus Garrett, a battle that always carries Defensive Player of the Year implications. Speaking of Watt and Garrett, let's break it down. Last year, Garrett edged out Watt for the AP Defensive Player of the Year award, sparking debates among fans and analysts. Watt's numbers were arguably better across the board, but Garrett took home the hardware. This season, both players are once again at the top of their game. Garrett's dominance in the last Steelers-Browns matchup only adds fuel to the fire. Despite the rivalry, Watt has kept his focus on the bigger picture, stating, "It's not personal for me. My issue is with the voting system, not Garrett. Still, you know Watt has this game circled on his calendar." A standout performance against Garrett and the Browns would be a huge statement, not just for Watt, but for the Steelers as they push for playoff supremacy. Keys to victory. What Pittsburgh needs to do. Control the line of scrimmage. Myles Garrett can single-handedly disrupt the game. The offensive line must neutralize him, giving Russell Wilson time to work his magic. Discipline in the secondary. Joey Porter Jr.'s penalties were costly last week. Against a divisional opponent like Cleveland, those mistakes could be the difference between a win and a loss. Red zone efficiency. The Steelers can't afford to settle for field goals. With the Browns' defense playing tough, finishing drives with touchdowns will be critical. Leverage the quarterback duo. Mike Tomlin has shown a willingness to use Justin Fields in short yardage and red zone situations. Keeping Cleveland guessing could provide the edge Pittsburgh needs. The Steelers are in a great position at 9-3, but every game from here on out matters. The AFC North is one of the toughest divisions in football, and there's no room for complacency. The Browns may be 3-9, but as we saw in Week 11, they're capable of pulling off an upset. This is a team built for January football, with stars like Watt, Porter, Harris, and Pickens leading the way. But discipline, execution, and consistency will determine whether this team can make a deep playoff run or fall short of expectations. All right, Steelers fans, it's time to sound off. What do you think about Naji Harris's season so far, and are you concerned about his health heading into Week 14? And how about George Pickens? Do you think he'll mature into the leader this team needs, or do his actions give you pause about his long-term future in Pittsburgh? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this update, and make sure to subscribe for all the latest Steelers news and analysis. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, here we go, Steelers!